Have you ever looked around a crowded subway car or a packed stadium and thought, wow, there are a lot of people here? Now imagine that feeling, but with everyone. Every single human being on Earth, all 8 billion of us, standing in a line, holding hands. How far do you think that line would stretch? Could it wrap around the entire planet? Could it go even further? The answer is going to blow your mind. And honestly, it kind of puts into perspective just how many of us are actually sharing this little blue marble floating through space. Stick around, because we're about to do some math that'll make you see humanity in a completely different way. Before we get started, check out the link in the description to download our ebook. Alright, let's set the stage here. As of right now, there are roughly 8 billion people living on Earth. 8 billion. That's a number so big, it's almost impossible to truly comprehend. If you tried to count to 8 billion out loud, one number per second, no breaks, no sleep, it would take you over 250 years. But we're not here to count, we're here to line everyone up and see what happens. Picture this. Every person on the planet steps outside wherever they are, and we organize them into one single file line. Well, actually, not single file. We're going shoulder to shoulder, arms length apart, holding hands like some kind of massive global chain. Now, the question becomes, how much space does each person take up in this scenario? And once we figure that out, how long would this human chain actually be? Let's start with the basics. When you stand next to someone with your arms stretched out to the side, how much width are you taking up? Obviously, this varies from person to person. A toddler takes up less space than a professional basketball player. But for the sake of this thought experiment, scientists and researchers generally estimate that the average human arm span, fingertip to fingertip, is roughly equal to their height. So if you're about 5'9", your arm span is probably around 5'9" as well. But we're not measuring full arm spans here. We're holding hands, standing side by side. When you do that, you're taking up roughly half your arm span, which works out to somewhere between half a meter and 6/10 of a meter per person. Let's split the difference and say each person occupies about 0.55 meters of space in our chain. That's a little over 1.5 feet for those of you thinking in imperial units. Now comes the fun part. We take that number, 0.55 meters, and we multiply it by 8 billion. When you crunch those numbers, you get 4,400,000,000 meters. Let's convert that into something more manageable. That's 4.4 million kilometers. Or if you prefer miles, that's about 2.7 million miles. Now, let's talk about Earth. Our planet has a circumference of roughly 40,075 kilometers at the equator. That's about 24,900 miles. So, if we take our human chain of 4.4 million kilometers and divide it by Earth's circumference, we get something incredible. Our chain of 8 billion people holding hands could wrap around the Earth not once, not twice, but approximately 110 times. Let that sink in for a second. 110 times around the entire planet. To put that in perspective, imagine driving a car at highway speed, let's say 100 kilometers per hour. If you wanted to drive around the Earth once at the equator, it would take you about 17 days of non-stop driving. Now multiply that by 110. Our human chain could create a loop so long that it would take you over 5 years of continuous driving just to trace the whole thing. Or think about it this way. The distance from the Earth to the Moon is about 384,000 kilometers. Our human chain is 4.4 million kilometers long. That means we could stretch from the Earth to the Moon and back nearly 6 times. 6 round trips to the Moon, with people, holding hands. But here's where things get even wilder. Imagine actually trying to pull this off. First of all, you've got oceans. About 71% of Earth's surface is water, so a huge portion of our chain would need to somehow float or stand on the ocean. Then there are mountains, deserts, polar ice caps. We'd have people holding hands at the top of Mount Everest in freezing conditions, and others doing the same in the scorching Sahara Desert. And let's not even get started on the logistical nightmare of organizing 8 billion people to actually show up at the right place at the right time. Also, think about the physical challenge. How long can you comfortably hold someone's hand? An hour? Maybe 2 if you're really committed? Now imagine doing that for hours or even days while standing in place. Your arms would be screaming. Your back would ache. You'd probably lose circulation in your fingers. And that's assuming everyone actually cooperates, which, let's be honest, is a pretty big assumption. But let's say, hypothetically, we could overcome all of that. What if we actually tried to organize this? How would it even work? First, you'd need some kind of global coordination system. Maybe we'd divide the world into zones, assign each person a number, and tell them exactly where to stand. You'd need translators, organizers, supply chains for food and water, medical teams on standby. It would be the single largest logistical operation in human history. And here's a funny thought. What if we did this and just left one person out? Like somewhere in the chain, there's just a missing link because someone overslept or got stuck in traffic. The whole thing falls apart. Or imagine being the person at the very end of the line. You're standing there holding one hand and your other hand is just dangling free. That's it. You're the end point of humanity's chain. How would that feel? Probably a little lonely, honestly. Then there's the question of timing. Earth rotates, right? So if we're standing on the surface holding hands, we're all moving at different speeds depending on our latitude. People at the equator are moving faster than people near the poles. Would that create tension in the chain? Would people start getting pulled along? It's absurd to think about, but it's also kind of fascinating. Here's the thing though, this entire thought experiment, as ridiculous as it sounds, actually tells us something profound about humanity. 8 billion people. That's how many of us there are. And yet, when you line us all up, we can wrap around the planet over 100 times. We're numerous, sure, but we're also small. Each one of us is just half a meter of space in a line that stretches millions of kilometers. And in a weird way, we're already holding hands. Not literally, of course, but think about it. Right now, you're watching this video probably on a device that connects you to billions of other people through the internet. You're part of a global network of communication, trade, ideas, and culture. We share resources, knowledge, languages, memes. We influence each other across continents without ever meeting face to face. The hand-holding chain is a metaphor we don't really need to physically create, because in many ways, we've already built it. We're interconnected on a scale that would have been unimaginable just a few generations ago. And that connection, that invisible chain linking all of us together, might be even more powerful than a physical one. So, could 8 billion people holding hands wrap around the Earth? Absolutely. In fact, we could do it 110 times over and still have room to spare. But maybe the more interesting question isn't whether we could do it, but what it represents. It's a reminder of just how many of us there are, how much space we take up, and yet how small we are in the grand scheme of things. It's a reminder that despite our differences, our distances, and our divisions, we're all here together on this one planet, connected in ways we don't always see. Maybe we don't need to hold hands to feel that connection. But imagining it sure puts our planet, and ourselves, into perspective. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this mind-bending thought experiment, hit that subscribe button, because next time, we might just answer the question, what would actually happen if all 8 billion of us jumped at the exact same time? Trust me, you'll want to see that.